It is a curious thing about the nature of opposition, that much of what we call an enemy is not a person but a posture, a way of thinking, a veil of misunderstanding, or the shadow of fear cast by unhealed wounds. How, then, shall we deal with those who seem to stand against us? Shall we take up arms of argument, retaliation, or disdain? Or is there a way to overcome without the need for combat? The first lesson we must learn is this: not all battles are worth fighting. Often what appears as conflict is but a mirror reflecting our own insecurities. The one who lashes out may do so not out of malice, but from a heart gripped by fear. To meet aggression with aggression is to perpetuate the cycle, but to respond with understanding is to step outside it, breaking the loop and inviting a better way. Consider the immense power of virtue. Patience disarms haste. Kindness melts cruelty. Truth, spoken in humility, dispels the fog of deception. These are not the weapons of the weak, but the tools of the wise. For to practice virtue is to expose the weakness of vice. When you stand firm in integrity, those who seek to provoke you find themselves wrestling with their own shadows. There is wisdom in strategic non-engagement. Not every attack demands a counter. Imagine the strength of a tree that stands unmoved in a storm. It neither fights the wind nor bends to its fury, yet it endures. So it is with those who resist the temptation to retaliate. By remaining steadfast and serene, they frustrate their adversaries, who expect a fight and find none. In such silence there is an eloquence louder than words, a quiet assertion of victory. The greatest enemy is not the person before us, but the impulses within us that cry for vengeance, for dominance, for the fleeting satisfaction of winning. To destroy the enemy without fighting them is to destroy these impulses within ourselves first. And in doing so, we discover that the real battle was never with the other, but with the lesser parts of ourselves. Not all battles are external. Many wars are waged within the human heart and mind, often without our conscious awareness. The conflicts we perceive in the world around us frequently have their roots in internal struggles. Animosity, bitterness, and discord do not appear in a vacuum. They are born out of misunderstanding, fear, and selfishness, forces that quietly shape the contours of human relationships and interactions. To confront an enemy without addressing these underlying causes is akin to treating symptoms without diagnosing the disease. Thus, understanding the nature of true conflict is the first step toward disarming it without the need for combat. At its core, conflict often stems from misunderstanding. We are quick to judge others' actions and intentions based on incomplete information or preconceived notions. A harsh word spoken in frustration might be interpreted as hostility, when in reality it is a cry for help or a symptom of personal pain. The inability or unwillingness to look beyond the surface creates a fertile ground for enmity to take root. When people operate under the weight of misunderstanding, they construct barriers that seem insurmountable. However, these barriers can be dismantled with patience and a sincere effort to understand the other person's perspective. Taking the time to listen, to ask questions without prejudice, and to empathize with another's struggles reveals that many enemies are not truly opposed to us. They are simply caught in their own struggles, just as we are. Fear is another potent source of conflict. It is an instinctual reaction, a survival mechanism that often distorts our perception of others. Fear of loss, fear of change, and fear of the unknown can lead us to see threats where none exist. This fear can harden into suspicion, causing us to treat others as adversaries rather than potential allies. For instance, two people might clash over a shared resource, not because there isn't enough to go around, but because fear tells them it will be taken away. In such moments, fear acts as a self-fulfilling prophecy, breeding behaviors that reinforce the very conflict we seek to avoid. Addressing the fear both in ourselves and in others requires courage and self-awareness. It demands that we confront the narratives we've built around our fears and seek the truth that lies beyond them. Selfishness, too, is a subtle yet pervasive force behind many conflicts. It manifests as a desire to prioritize our own needs, wants, and perspectives above those of others. This self-centeredness blinds us to the value of cooperation and compromise, turning potential allies into perceived opponents. When selfishness governs our actions, we view others' success as a threat to our own and their differing opinions as an attack on our identity. Yet selfishness is often born out of insecurity, the belief that we are not enough and must take from others to feel complete. Recognizing this allows us to approach conflict with humility and a willingness to share, collaborate, and grow together. What makes these internal sources of conflict so insidious is their invisibility. Unlike external battles, which are marked by visible aggression, these internal struggles operate in the shadows of our minds, shaping our perceptions and reactions without our conscious consent. A person embroiled in misunderstanding, fear, or selfishness often does not recognize the role these forces play in their interactions. They may attribute the conflict entirely to external circumstances, blaming the other party while remaining blind to their own contribution. To overcome these internal forces, one must cultivate self-awareness and a commitment to inner growth. This involves a deliberate effort to pause, reflect, and question our own motives and assumptions. Are we truly responding to the situation at hand, or are we reacting to a story we've created in our minds? Are we seeking to understand, or are we clinging to the safety of our own perspective? Such introspection requires humility and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves. Once we recognize the internal sources of conflict, we can begin to disarm them through deliberate action. Misunderstanding can be countered with open communication and a willingness to see the world through another's eyes. Fear can be dispelled through trust, built slowly through consistent acts of goodwill and honesty. Selfishness can be transformed into generosity by focusing on shared goals and the greater good. These are not easy tasks, but they are transformative ones. In addressing the roots of conflict within ourselves, we also begin to influence the world around us. The person who approaches life with clarity, courage, and selflessness becomes a force for peace in any environment. They model a different way of being, showing others that it is possible to navigate disagreements without falling into division. By tackling the misunderstandings, fears, and selfish impulses within, they disarm not only their own hostility, but often that of those they interact with. In this way, the battle is won without a single blow being struck. Virtues have a transformative power that goes beyond the immediate and obvious. While force or aggression may yield short-term victories, it is through virtues such as patience, kindness, and wisdom that true and lasting influence is achieved. The power of virtue lies not in overt displays of strength, but in the quiet and consistent demonstration of character. This approach not only disarms hostility, but also inspires change in the hearts of others, making it one of the most effective ways to overcome opposition without direct confrontation. Patience is often underestimated in its ability to dissolve conflict. In a world where immediacy is prized, the act of waiting and withholding judgment is a revolutionary choice. When faced with hostility, patience allows one to pause, observe, and understand the situation more clearly. Impulsive reactions often escalate conflict, while patience provides the space needed to address underlying issues. For example, when someone acts in anger or frustration, a patient response can de-escalate the situation. It communicates restraint and self-control, encouraging the other person to reconsider their approach. This quiet strength, exhibited in the midst of provocation, often catches others off guard, breaking the cycle of aggression. Kindness, too, wields a subtle yet profound power. It operates as a counterintuitive response to negativity, defying expectations and disrupting patterns of conflict. When met with hostility, most people anticipate retaliation or defensiveness. A kind word, gesture, or action in such a moment can disarm even the most entrenched adversary. Kindness reveals a willingness to look beyond the immediate conflict and see the humanity in the other person. It is an act of grace that often shifts the dynamics of a situation, creating a foundation for reconciliation. Kindness does not mean yielding to every demand or ignoring wrongdoing. Rather, it reflects a decision to prioritize understanding and compassion over revenge or dominance. By choosing kindness, one invites others to rise above their baser instincts and engage in a more constructive way. Wisdom acts as a guiding principle that informs when and how to apply virtues like patience and kindness. It is not enough to simply act virtuously, one must also act discerningly. Wisdom enables a person to recognize the deeper issues at play in a conflict and respond appropriately. For example, there are times when silence speaks louder than words, and wisdom helps discern those moments. Similarly, wisdom teaches us that not all kindness is received immediately or reciprocated in kind, but its effects are often felt in the long term. A wise person understands that the seeds of virtue may take time to bear fruit and acts with a vision that extends beyond immediate outcomes. Virtue also has a way of exposing the inherent weakness of vice. When confronted with patience, the impatience of others appears childish and self-defeating. Kindness highlights the pettiness of cruelty, and wisdom reveals the folly of impulsive actions. In this way, virtue does not need to attack vice directly, it simply stands firm, allowing vice to collapse under its own weight. This quiet strength is far more enduring than the fleeting victories won through force or manipulation. It builds a foundation of respect and credibility that cannot easily be shaken. Another remarkable aspect of virtue is its ripple effect. The actions of a single individual can inspire others to adopt similar behaviors. When one person responds to hostility with kindness or demonstrates patience in the face of provocation, it sets an example that others are drawn to follow. This influence extends beyond the immediate conflict, fostering a culture of mutual respect and understanding. Virtue, therefore, is not just a personal strength, but a communal force, shaping the dynamics of relationships and communities. It is important to note that practicing virtue requires intention and effort. It is not a passive or weak response, but a deliberate choice to rise above pettiness and negativity. It demands self-awareness and emotional discipline, particularly in situations where our instincts push us toward anger or retaliation. Virtue is not about suppressing emotions, but about channeling them in ways that are constructive rather than destructive. For instance, anger can be transformed into a determination to address injustice, and fear can be redirected into a resolve to build trust. The power of virtue extends beyond disarming opponents, it transforms the one practicing it. Every act of patience strengthens self-control, every instance of kindness deepens empathy, and every application of wisdom enhances discernment. These qualities become part of the individual's character, equipping them to navigate future challenges with greater resilience and grace. In this way, the practice of virtue is both a strategy for resolving conflict and a path to personal growth. The power of virtue lies in its ability to elevate both the individual and the collective. It shifts the focus from winning battles to building bridges, from defeating others to uplifting them. By embodying patience, kindness, and wisdom, one not only dismantles hostility but also plants seeds of peace and understanding that can grow far beyond the immediate situation. Virtue, then, is not merely a tool for conflict resolution, but a way of life that transforms adversaries into allies and challenges into opportunities for growth. Strategic non-engagement is a profound and often misunderstood approach to conflict. It is not avoidance out of fear or passivity, but a deliberate choice to rise above petty disputes and destructive encounters. It recognizes that not every battle is worth fighting and that, sometimes, the most effective response to provocation is no response at all. This approach requires discernment, self-control, and a clear understanding of one's higher goals. By refusing to engage in unnecessary conflict, one preserves energy, maintains dignity, and often disarms an opponent more effectively than direct confrontation ever could. At the heart of strategic non-engagement is the principle of prioritization. Life is full of challenges, and not all of them demand our attention. Some conflicts are distractions, designed to pull us away from our purpose. When we react impulsively to every slight or provocation, we risk becoming entangled in endless cycles of negativity. Choosing not to engage, on the other hand, allows us to focus on what truly matters. This does not mean ignoring serious issues, but rather discerning which battles align with our values and long-term goals. A person who masters this skill learns to differentiate between meaningful struggles and trivial skirmishes. Non-engagement also highlights the importance of maintaining emotional equilibrium. Conflict often thrives on emotional escalation. When one party lashes out, they expect retaliation. This back and forth fuels the fire of discord. By refusing to retaliate, one interrupts this cycle, forcing the aggressor to confront the futility of their actions. Silence or calm in the face of provocation can be disarming. It creates a mirror in which the aggressor sees their behavior reflected and often feels its pettiness. This response requires immense self-discipline, as it is natural to want to defend oneself or retaliate when attacked. Yet, the strength to remain composed demonstrates a higher level of control and wisdom. Another aspect of strategic non-engagement is the ability to redirect energy. Instead of wasting time and effort on fruitless arguments or conflicts, one can channel that energy into constructive endeavors. For instance, when faced with criticism or opposition, it may be more effective to let actions speak louder than words. Demonstrating competence, achieving success, or simply continuing to pursue one's goals often neutralizes hostility more effectively than direct confrontation. This approach turns potential conflict into an opportunity for personal growth and accomplishment. Strategic non-engagement also involves the recognition that some conflicts are self-defeating. engaging in a battle of egos or participating in a quarrel where both sides are more interested in winning than understanding serves no productive purpose. Such encounters often result in mutual harm, even if one party appears to win in the short term. Non-engagement removes oneself from this destructive dynamic, allowing clarity and peace to prevail. It is not about conceding defeat, but about refusing to play a game that offers no real victory. The strength of this approach lies in its ability to preserve relationships and reputations. In heated moments, words can be spoken and actions taken that cause long-lasting damage. By choosing not to engage, one avoids these pitfalls, maintaining a sense of integrity and respect. Over time, this restraint builds trust and credibility as others come to see the individual as someone who does not act out of impulse or malice. This reputation for steadiness and fairness can be an invaluable asset in personal and professional relationships. Non-engagement is also a strategy for self-protection. Engaging in conflict often takes a toll on one's mental and emotional well-being. Anger, stress, and resentment can linger long after the argument has ended, draining energy and focus. By choosing not to engage, one safeguards their peace of mind. This is not an act of weakness, but of self-respect, a recognition that one's inner peace is too valuable to sacrifice for the sake of proving a point or winning an argument. It is important to note that strategic non-engagement does not mean passivity or indifference. There are situations where standing up and speaking out is necessary and right. The key is to act out of principle, not emotion, and to choose battles wisely. Non-engagement is not about avoiding responsibility, but about exercising wisdom in determining when and how to respond. It is a strategy that combines patience, foresight, and a commitment to higher values. This approach also requires a deep sense of self-assurance. People often feel compelled to engage in conflicts because they perceive a need to defend their worth or reputation. However, those who are secure in themselves understand that their value is not determined by others' opinions or attacks. This inner confidence allows them to let go of the need to prove themselves in every situation. They recognize that true strength is found in restraint, and that their actions and character speak louder than any argument ever could. Strategic non-engagement can have a transformative effect on the aggressor as well. When someone lashes out and is met with calm, non-reactive behavior, they are often forced to re-evaluate their actions. The lack of resistance can lead to self-reflection, and in some cases even remorse. Over time, this approach can turn hostility into respect and enmity into understanding. By refusing to add fuel to the fire, one creates the conditions for the conflict to extinguish itself. Strategic non-engagement is about seeing the bigger picture. It is about understanding that not every slight needs addressing, not every insult requires a response, and not every opponent is worth battling. It is about choosing peace over pride, wisdom over impulsiveness, and long-term harmony over short-term gratification. This strategy not only disarms external conflict, but also cultivates inner strength and resilience, allowing one to navigate life's challenges with grace and purpose.